Is this working? My name is Christopher Hitchens. I work for Vanity Fair, which is a small faith-based magazine in New York City. Believes in storytelling. My question, I think, is just permissible within the brackets of your book and also your talk, because you're very interesting about what happened in Somalia and to Somalis during your time there. And we've recently seen the vanquishment of the so-called Islamic courts movement in Somalia, but by people who you describe as the most hated among Somalis, namely the Ethiopians. So I would be terribly interested to hear, and I'm sure I'm not alone, what you hear from Somali friends and what you think yourself about whether an Ethiopian intervention is too high a price to pay for saving Somalia from the Islamic courts.
And you, being a white, middle-aged male, must already know the answer.
Lush of you. Though I feel rather rejuvenated when you say it. Taking the veil off can inflame men. I'm just telling you that now. Someone has to tell you.
I think you already know the answer. Look, honestly, Somalia has been a construct since 1960, when the Italians, the French, and the British left. In the case of Djibouti was a French colony, the rest was Italian and British, and they left. And they left behind what they call an interim government that lasted just a few years, about 9 years before a dictatorship had overtaken it. After this dictatorship, which started in 1969 and lasted until 1990, then anarchy came on. And the only reason that the United States is interested in what's going on in Somalia today is because it might be a threat to the interest of the United States. In Somalia, being an anarchy, a place with no government, where people of all deviant behavior can group and regroup, the United States, having had the experience with Afghanistan and the Taliban, want to prevent, and particularly the Bush administration wants to prevent that such islands of terrorism can arise. Now, there are two ways of going about it. One way is, let's ignore this place, let them sort out their business, and we'll see what they make of it. If they want to go through centuries of medieval treatment and they want to go back with the Islamic courts to the 7th century, fine. I don't really think that many Americans care beyond caring in the moral sense. Like, people would say it's terrible what's happening there, but they would never put policy and money and American lives to go out there and do it. One, and I would say in the international, in theory on international relations, one of them that is emerging, and I think what we still see as people being called the neoconservatives, is if America interferes at all, then it should not only be about the American interest. You can put a moral, a moral mortgage on things by saying, look, we are going to improve things. We are not going to leave Afghanistan without a government. We are going to put in a government there to prevent, we're going to bring in democracy, we're going to prevent Al-Qaeda-like and other terrorists from making their home. That's not what is happening in Somalia today. What is happening in Somalia today is we see people reverting back to the old theory of having a neighboring country or a force within the place, within Somalia, and trying to remove the bad guys. So America will finance them, will help them, and so on, and then hopefully waiting until the problem solves itself. Now, we've seen that in many countries that hasn't worked. And I don't think it's going to work at all. And it's not about Somalis and Ethiopians hating each other. It's about Ethiopia being a dictatorship, Ethiopia being bad for its own people, and Ethiopia will maybe send the troops under pressure from the United States for now, but that is never going to be long-lasting. And the Somali, the alternative, they call themselves the secular movement, who want to oust the Islamic courts, they're not dedicated to the American interest of establishing a democracy and establishing the rule of law and so on and so forth. They just want to take the money for a while, use it, and then see what happens next. This is a place where we live by the day. We don't have long future plans on building democracies and so on and so forth. So I'm sorry to disappoint all of you. The new reverting back to the